Good evening. I want to thank you for our very first installment of our training videos webinar series this year. I'm excited that we're starting off with our legislative advocacy webinar with our legislative chair, who most of you know, our chair, Jean Siebenaler. We're excited about this video because we know that our legislative advocacy is incredibly important to how we elevate what's going on in Tallahassee, how we activate and educate our communities, how we let everyone know that they have a space in this arena, a place where they can be an advocate for our various causes. We're in a terrible space with Ron DeSantis, and what we're going to learn tonight from our legislative chair, Jean Siebenaler, is how we can all play a part in making sure that America knows what's going on here in Florida, and that Floridians, most of all, understand what's at stake. So I want to now kick it off to our our training chair, Maureen McKenna, who has worked very hard with this committee over the last couple of years. I want to thank you so very much, Chair McKenna, for your work. I can't tell you from the bottom of my heart how much I appreciate you and the work that you've done. I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited tonight that we are going to have Jean Siebenaler talk about legislative advocacy. As Monica said, it's so pertinent and it's so timely. I have some instructions for you. Please ask questions after Jean's presentation. Use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. Do not use the chat button, but use the Q&A function in that button. When you ask a question, please make sure your name is evident in the question. Questions will be addressed after Jean's presentation, as I said. Jean, legislative chair of the Democratic Women's Club of Florida, leads legislative liaisons and other DWCF members of the legislative team from around the state in grassroots advocacy and lobbying efforts with the Florida State Legislature. She is an active member of the Santa Rosa DWC, where she is also the club's president and past legislative liaison. She has created and really worked hard in helping create a robust tally days process that enables DWCF members to supply strong and ever-present DWCF representation and advocacy in Tallahassee. Therefore, the DWCF Training Committee is proud to introduce this month's presenter, Jean Siebenaler. Jean?
Well, thank you. Let me go ahead and take this to okay, I think I've got it all here. Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and welcome everybody to kick off the new year with this topic of legislative advocacy. I am the current chair of the Legislative Committee. It is my great honor to be doing this, being in this role. And if you have any questions, as Maureen said, please save them for the end, because we will have plenty of time for discussion. So let's go ahead and get started. You know, I started to think about something that Alice Walker, the Pulitzer Prize winning author of The Color Purple, said when I was putting together thoughts for this presentation. She said, the most common way that people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. So let that sink in, because that is really true, right? How easy it would be to convince ourselves as Democrats this year that we have no power. That is what the media is reporting every day, right? They're saying that we Florida Democrats have given up our power and we should just all better shut up and accept our fate under the supermajority control of the Republican Party. Well, I don't plan to shut up, and I don't think you do either, or you wouldn't be here tonight. Why? Because our voices are our power, and we are not ready to give up our voices to anybody. But we do need to know how to harness our power, how to effectively use our voices so that we are not just howling into a void. So how can we do that? By training our individual voices to be more effective as legislative advocates. And why should we bother at all? Well, for one thing, we all have a responsibility and a duty in a representative democracy, and that is especially true now. Our state Democratic legislators who are in the legislative minority are literally begging us to help them be their advocacy voices in our communities. But there is another really important reason. As you know, democracy is in a very fragile state, especially in Florida. To say we were an outlier nationally in the recent midterm elections is an understatement. Florida is enacting more and more authoritarian policies and laws designed to strip away what every citizen deserves, the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. And the worst of it is that most people don't know it because they don't focus on politics, especially state politics, or they won't believe it because it just seems like hyperbole and seems too fantastical. How many of us only 5 years ago thought there is no way they'll pass a law that prevents truthful Black history from being taught because it makes white people feel bad? I mean, that's just too crazy, but here we are. So people need to be educated on the facts by knowledgeable people with passion and a purpose. Quite frankly, that is you, and it's me. And democracy needs our voices. It needs our power. So this presentation will help you understand the essential steps in legislative advocacy, and then we'll outline specific steps and considerations that will help you to improve your skills. Now, probably the first and most important step to being a better legislative advocate is to understand the legislative structure and process, or as we say, to understand how the sausage is made. How does a bill become a law? How do you track a bill? What are companion bills and why are they important? How can you watch a committee hearing when you're not in Tallahassee? These and other basic facts are the fundamental building blocks in growing your legislative advocacy knowledge and skills. Because we as an organization spend so much time in advocacy with the Florida State Legislature, it is important to know some basic facts about this body. The upper chamber or Senate consists of 40 members who serve 4-year terms with a max of 2 terms. The lower chamber or House of Representatives consists of 120 members who serve 2-year terms with a max of 4 terms. It is considered to be a part-time rulemaking body, on paper anyway, because it meets for 60-day sessions every year. But as you know, they can schedule additional special sessions and they meet for interim committee weeks about 2 months prior to the start of regular sessions. Now, regular sessions begin in January during even-numbered years and March in odd-numbered years. So this year in 2023, we're starting in March. When you hear about a bill, you can always tell whether it is a House-sponsored or Senate-sponsored bill because House bills have odd bill numbers. For example, House Bill 1, HB 1, and Senate bills have even bill numbers. For example, Senate Bill 2, SB 2. A bill's goal is to have a companion bill from the other chamber that facilitates movement through both chambers at the same time. And this saves time for reconciliation of a single bill at the end of session. Now, I'm not going to delve into more legislative process details in this presentation. We made 2 videos over the past few years that review these principles in detail. You can find them on our Democratic Women's Club of Florida's YouTube channel under the titles Florida Legislative Process 101, Our State Government Making a Bill, and Legislative Process Part 2, How to Track a Bill. Now, the first video is slightly dated with names and positions of legislators who are no longer there, but the underlying content is still relevant and current. And just know that the content of both videos will be updated in a single workshop at our April Democratic Women's Club of Florida's convention this year, and will be reposted to our YouTube channel after that for your reference. So after you have your basic legislative structure and process knowledge in hand, the next step is to become educated about important issues and bills being considered in the legislature. Now, doing so makes us better allies with each other and our Democratic legislators in the fight to support or oppose specific bills. Knowledge also gives us more credibility and provides us with greater self-confidence when speaking or writing about an issue or a bill. It also provides a perspective that allows us to understand and challenge the other side's position with competence and greater ease. Now, one of the best ways to gain basic knowledge about issues and bills is to join the Democratic Women's Club of Florida's legislative team. And I'm going to discuss this in detail at the end of this presentation. All right, so how do we actually engage in advocacy? Well, you must first determine your target audience. Who do we want to influence? Most of the time, we think of our target audience as government officials. After all, they're the ones who decide whether to put issues up for debate and votes in committees. And there are many methods to influence them. There's letters, postcards, phone calls, emails, social media pages, visits with them, comments in town halls, testimonies in committee hearings. We're going to talk about all of that in a bit. But we must also remember that we have influential power within our own personal and community spheres as well. We tend to forget that our letters, our postcards, our emails, texts, and social media posts directed to family, friends, and our communities on specific issues are all forms of legislative advocacy. The same is true for public speaking, participation in public rallies, such as the Row Rally today, press conferences, letters to the editor, and media campaigns. And here is where our superpower exists. It is where the public and government official interface meet for amplification. When we influence enough of the public, a critical mass, to mobilize into action, the public then influences government officials, who in turn may influence more of the public, and so on. We are creating concentric ripples in the pond that expand out, are reinforced by each other, and gain strength in the process. A great example of this in action last year was the net metering bill. This bill would have codified anti-solar utility talking points into statute, reduce the amount that utilities must pay to customers who generate renewable energy, allow utilities to impose new charges, fees, and minimum bills on solar customers, and essentially kill off the solar roof industry, which generates thousands of jobs. There was significant and sustained public outlash, creating those ripples in the pond, such that by the end of session, you had cracks in that Republican armor, with members peeling away from their caucus with their support. Now, it wasn't enough to crush passage of the bill, because it did pass both chambers, but there was enough to get the attention of the governor in an election year, who finally vetoed that bill. Now, depending on whether your target audience is the public, or elected officials, your communication methods will differ. If your audience is the public, you must use the optimal methodology to reach it. For example, the size of your target audience is important. Will your audience be small? For example, a book club at your home can be an advocacy target. If so, your method of communication will certainly be different than if your group is medium-sized, such as your Democratic Women's Club or your Democratic Precinct, or if it is large, such as all voters in your city or your county. How will you reach them? As the old saying goes, money doesn't grow on trees. So you must determine your method and your cost of persuasion, especially with large target audiences. Billboards and newspaper ads are very expensive, but letters and postcards also require money for costs of paper, printing, stamps. Emails, letters to the editors, and social media posts are often a very cost-effective way to reach a lot of people at one time. But while costs are important, timing must also be taken into consideration, especially for time-sensitive issues and bills. Mailing letters or postcards to voters may not be your best option in these instances. The same is true for letters to the editor, which can sometimes take weeks to get published in the paper, or a media ad campaign, which can take even longer. Better options might be emails, texts, social media comments, public rallies, press conferences when time is of the essence. Now, what if government officials are your target audience? First, you must consider whether you are communicating with them long distance or in person. Long distance methods of communication include phone calls, written communication such as letters, postcards, emails, texts, and comments on their social media pages. Long distance advocacy is the primary method that we use during the legislative session, unless we make appointments to meet in person during tally days. Remember that it is important to keep your communication short and to the point, and to be civil and polite, no matter how difficult that may seem at times. It is important to be specific in your request. Do you want them to support or oppose an issue or bill, say XYZ? Well, don't let them get to the end of your phone call or email and wonder what it is you want them to do. Tell them right up front in your phone call or the subject line of your email. They're not going to read or listen to a long and rambling message. Make sure you record or write your name, your address, your issue of concern, and the bill title and number. Any legislator will want to know if you are a constituent of theirs, and the bill title and number helps to orient them because they have thousands of bills that are filed and that they will need to pay attention to later. In general, it is also recommended that you stay away from canned form postcards, letters, or petitions, but there certainly are instances where they are still helpful. And if sending handwritten communication, it is extremely important to write legibly. Handwritten, heartfelt notes can be very impactful, but they are absolutely worthless if the elected official cannot read them. In-person communication with elected officials can include speaking in official town halls or forums, such as at the county delegation meetings, providing committee hearing testimony in Tallahassee, and attending a face-to-face meeting with the legislator. Now, when requesting a face-to-face visit with an elected official, it is important to contact the official's office and ask to speak with the appointment secretary or scheduler. Explain who you are, what group you represent, and the issues that you want to discuss. Ask about the elected official's preference and availability for type of meeting, in-office meeting, or they may still prefer a virtual meeting. You should ask about it. offer to host the virtual meeting if that is a better option for the official. Now, if the legislator is unavailable or too busy to meet, set up your meeting with the legislative aide, who often has great influence with the legislator, and understand how much time you're allotted for the meeting. These meetings are usually under 15 minutes, and they may be even shorter when you're trying to meet during the legislative session in Tallahassee. Now, before the day of your meeting, do some planning. Predetermine and study the 2 to 3 main discussion points or requests that you want to cover. Study and understand the elected official, especially his or her party affiliation, important advocacy issues, voting record, and committee assignments. Confirm the meeting beforehand. There is nothing worse than showing up to a meeting with your colleagues that was canceled and you didn't know about it. For meetings in a specified physical location like the legislator's office, keep the group limited to 3 to 5 people. You do not want to overwhelm. Now, if you have a virtual meeting, it is actually more impactful with many attendees on the screen, but limit the number of speakers to 3 to 5 people. In either case, designate someone to lead the discussion and someone else to take notes during the meeting. And consider including 1 to 2 storytellers, those impactful people with personal stories to tell that are related to the issue or bill being discussed. On the day of your face-to-face meeting, be on time. In fact, be a little early. Have the leader introduce the group and thank the elected official for taking the time to meet. Keep the meeting short. The elected official may try to swerve away from a controversial issue or bill that's a little uncomfortable for them to discuss. Don't let them do that. Don't let them use up chit-chat time with your time. Provide personal stories about why your issue is important and why you're seeking his or her support or opposition. And for extra impact, bring signed petitions from many supporters. Think about the impact that has to have a meeting with a legislator and have a whole stack of petitions signed by people, and you lay it on their desk. Remember, be polite, honest, and remain credible. Don't try to bluff an answer. Don't argue, even if that's difficult to do. Ask how you and your group can help the elected official to support or oppose a bill or issue. Leave the meeting on a friendly note with a handshake and a smile, even if you disagree. And leave behind a summary document with your key messages and supportive citations or references. After your face-to-face meeting, send a thank you note. Restate your 2 to 3 key messages that were discussed and include any follow-up materials or answers that you promised you would send. And there you have it. Being a good legislative advocate is really not that complicated, but putting all the pieces together can certainly seem overwhelming at first. And that is why I am so proud to be a part of the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. The DWCF has long recognized that our individual voices are stronger together. There is respect in the organization that knowledge is power and that it is the foundation to any success as legislative advocates. There is also an inherent understanding that all issues are women's issues because they are interconnected and affect all of our lives on a daily basis. Here you see a list of the subject areas we follow during legislative session. On a weekly basis, we discuss prioritized bills categorized within each of these subject areas that are moving through committees. Our discussions are led by volunteer subject area leaders from Democratic women's clubs all over the state who dig a little deeper in their areas and help us to learn the specifics about the bills being discussed. Now, if you do not already participate on the legislative team, that is why we urge you to join it. You will learn to understand the legislative bill-making process and the facts and background information about specific bills simply by listening. While our Democratic Women's Club legislative liaisons from around the state are the backbone of the team who disseminate important information and action alerts to their clubs, any interested member of the DWCF can join, simply listen, or participate in the discussion if desired. But if you are also interested in a more interactive experience with travel to Tallahassee for Tally Days during the Florida legislative session, we help to guide you and mentor you with our experienced legislative team leaders. You will learn to navigate the crazy internal maze of the Capitol, attend committee hearings. You will learn to voice your support or opposition to priority bills during these hearings, and you will personally meet with legislators and staff. So don't let your individual power be snuffed out. Harness it for change. And if you are not a member of the Democratic Women's Club of Florida, and I know we have people here tonight who are not, we urge you to go to the About page at our website, dwcf.org, and find your local club information and join them. They need you and you need them. If you are already a DWC member and you want to join the legislative team, please contact your DWC president or the legislative chair listed on the website. That is me currently. I promise you will become better legislative advocates. And together, working together, we will improve our skills. We will strengthen our democracy. Together, we will rebuild our collective democratic voices as one. And together, we will reclaim the freedoms that all Floridians deserve to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. That was so inspiring and informative. Thank you so much. I was especially happy when you said all issues are women's issues. I remember back in the day when I was advised that we should only be talking about reproductive rights and childcare as Democratic Women's Club. So I was real happy to see that. That's part of us now. At this point, I'm going to be looking at the Q&A function, and I will be asking the questions. Carol, excuse me, Carol Cleaver, what legislative bills have you heard that is coming on the horizon? Besides HB1, of course. Thank you.
Well, you know, the legislative session has been a little sleepy up until HB1 dropped in our laps a couple days ago. We know for a fact that what is coming certainly is a more restrictive abortion bill. They've told us that's coming. We know that a permitless carry gun bill is coming. We know that for sure. We know that obviously more anti-public education bills will be coming. We know already, for example, that there have been some bills filed to, again, try to decrease our ability to pass citizen initiatives on our ballots. That one's been filed again. They keep trying that one, but that one's back again. So there are a number of bad bills that are coming our way. But HB1, the school choice bill that was just dropped a couple days ago, that will literally put a nail in the coffin of funding for public education, is, I would say, our very first really big bad bill that has come.
The next three people, Dr. Yvette Spano from Flagler County, Elizabeth Smith from Martin County, and Anna Osika, wanted to know how they could access this presentation in the future and have available the slides. And Monica, if you wanted to say more, I was just going to say to look at DWCF. To look at YouTube, our YouTube channel, and sign up for the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. That's what you look for under search on the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see our rather extensive library of videos now that are very educational, and you can show these to your club members or to your friends. Monica, did you want to add anything about that?
No, except that this webinar and all of the webinars that are presented, you can always find in our YouTube channel, as Maureen described, and we will always have them posted within 2 or 3 days. We understand that when you see these, especially something like this, when we are forming our ideas and plans about attending tally days and how we want to best service our legislators and support what's going on, or oppose what the egregious nonsensical bills that are coming our way. This is so very important, and so we're going to make sure that, in fact, I might get it out there tonight, just to make sure that you have access to it. And please feel free to download it, feel free to share it. We want you to use that as material in your meetings, in your club meetings. If you want to send it to a friend, we are not at all, this is information that Democrats need, and we are not wanting to hold on to it. It's best if we all use it and share it and do it well. So please feel free to look for it, and I'll get it down there. I'll get it out there tonight.
Thank you, Monica. The next question is from Reese Cherie. When will HB1 bill be available to read? Thank you.
It's all, the text of the current bill is available. You just have to look on either the House website or the Florida House website or the Senate website and look for HB1. And there's a little link there that is for bill text. And so you can read it right online. Now, the text will change as time goes on, right? So it'll be heard in its first committee hearing this next week. And then usually what happens, there'll be, discussion, and then sometimes the text will change. Sometimes there'll be amendments that happen. So you have to continue to follow along to see if there are changes, but the current text is available online in either the Florida House or the Florida Senate website.
Thank you. The next one is from Susan Kitterer. How do you get your legislative information as part of the legislative team, please?
Well, I live with the Florida House and the Florida Senate websites open on my computer all day long, every day, as do the subject leaders for each of their areas. So you can track, like if, for example, members of our education area might track every single bill related to education so that they can know when that bill is going to be heard in committee, when it's changing, any new action that's happening as a result. You can track bills. Again, tracking a bill and learning little tricks like that are in that second video I mentioned that we did last year. So please look that up because it teaches you how to use the websites to track bills. And I'm going to redo that essentially for the convention this year. We're going to redo that, revise it, and I'll be going into detail about that this year. But it's basically through the House and Senate websites, essentially. And then, of course, you follow the media as well. There are several publications that I follow very closely because they're updated every day. One is called the Florida Phoenix, very, very helpful publication, as well as Florida Politics. And then there are certainly newspapers from around. I don't subscribe to many of them because they may cost money, but anything I can find for free. And again, we have this magnanimous organization and group of volunteers. I get information from members of the legislative team who are following their own links. I get information from them, and I try to disseminate information back out to the team, important information. But it's primarily the websites is what I track.
Thank you. The next question is from Barbara Lindsay. Do you think that they will take up the net metering issue again? Would both houses have to vote again, or could the governor just sign it based on the last vote?
No, if they do it, it has to start all over again. If they want to do a net metering bill, I can't imagine that they would want to do the same bill again, because they got hammered on that last year. But so if they want to tweak it, if they want to try to do something that they think is more palatable, they would have to start from scratch. And it has not been filed. Nothing's been filed yet. I can tell you that. But they'd have to start over.
Thank you. The next one is from Joy Burgess of DeWin. Hi, Joy. At our local Roe v. Wade rally today, one of our state reps gave an inspiring speech. However, the frustration she communicated that she felt was heartbreaking. How do we, as DWCF members, support our own legislators who face a dismal term where most of their amendments to controversial bills will be ignored? How do we help them harness their own power?
Well, of course, it's one of the reasons that we modified our tally days last year and have continued it this year, is to support our legislators in Tallahassee. We want to have a presence in Tallahassee every week, so that we are constantly letting them know, they see us sitting in the audience of the important bills being discussed. They know that we're there supporting them. We provide at least two, like a breakfast and a lunch to them as an organization during session. But if you can't make it to Tallahassee, you can send them an email. It's so easy. And it's certainly one of the things that we do at the end of session. For the last couple of years, we've encouraged members to send notes of thank you. And I can't begin to tell you how many times we've heard from legislators that they read those notes. They really appreciate them. It does elevate them. It gives them more optimism and hope that what they're doing is helpful. So even an email is something they'll read and they appreciate.
Thank you. The next one I will try to answer, and if any of you want to clarify, please just say something. The question is from Linnell Philman. Is DWCF a total separate entity from DWIN? DWIN by another name is the DWC of Duval County, based out of Jacksonville. And they are a very important part of our club. They're chartered by the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. We've had many board members that have been from DWIN and represented DWIN. Is there anything that anybody would like to add to that before I go on? Okay, the next one, thank you, Linnell. The next one is from Andrea Williams. Is there a social media sector to the legislative team that advocates?
Social media, we don't have a social media separate subject area. I know there's a bill related to social media education in our schools. That's in education. If it has to do with technology and infrastructure, we have that in our economy and infrastructure section, but we don't have a separate social media subject area that we cover. But if bills are filed related to social media, we'll find a place for them, right? We'll track them and we'll put them someplace.
Okay, thank you. The next one is from Marcia Storch. Is it better to spend our energy on Democrats who support these bills or the Republicans who will very rarely change their minds?
I don't think we should go into any of this thinking we're going to change Republican minds. It's not going to happen. The idea of doing this is to not give them a pass. We have to hold them accountable. They have to know that we're out there. We simply cannot let them believe that everybody believes as they do, because they don't hear anything back from anybody. It doesn't make any sense. Of course, they're going to think that. We have got to let them know how we feel. So, and again, it's possible. You just never know what issue is going to light the fire, and they're going to think, oh, that is so toxic. I can't hold the same position that I did before. So yeah, no, I think that those of us who live in red areas, and I'm one of them, we simply have to talk to our Republican legislators. They can't have a pass.
Thank you. The next one is from Francine Julius Edwards. She just wanted to let everybody know there are still a few weeks available for tally days for certain regions. She's the tally days chair. She wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that. There's a few weeks still left if you want to volunteer for them. Gail Cunningham want to know, when visiting Tallahassee, are you allowed to confer with your city's lobbyists for updates or legislative priorities? Cities.
Well, are we allowed? I mean, we can talk to anybody. That's certainly not a problem. And we would love if somebody wants to meet with us and talk with us, we can do that. When we go to Tallahassee, however, we don't represent the organization if we get up and provide testimony in Tallahassee during a committee hearing. If we get up and provide testimony, it comes from us as an individual representing ourselves. But I am, one of the things we absolutely need to do is, again, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. So grabbing knowledge from whoever has it and figuring out what we're going to do with that is, I'm all about that. I think we all are. So I may not have understood the question correctly. So if I didn't, somebody should re-ask it.
The next question is from Mary Savage. I would like to see the video on navigating the legislature websites.
That is on our YouTube channel. And it is, I always have to look up it's called Legislative Process Part 2, How to Track a Bill. So if you go to our YouTube channel and you look up that title, you'll find the video. I saw it there not that long ago.
And she should get on. I think that's one of her next questions from Mary. She wanted to know how to find and see the video, and she needs to go onto YouTube and search by Democratic Women's Club of Florida.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. The next question is from Linda Robinson of the Pensacola National Coalition of Black Women. Thank you so much for the presentation. I am Linda Presley Robinson, president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Inc. in Pensacola chapter. I'm very interested in making sure this information is available for the people in Escambia County. We advocate on issues such as these and would welcome the opportunity to partner with any organization to help with this matter.
We are all about partnering with allied groups. As President Rita said, this is not just for us. This is about getting stronger as allies together. We have got to change what's going on. So yeah, contact me. I'm happy to talk to your group. You can grab the video from our YouTube channel. You don't have, anybody can check that out. So thank you for joining tonight. It's awesome to hear that there are these people from all over. Wonderful.
Jean, could you just review how to find your contact information?
You can get it from the DWCF.org website. And I can't go into chat. Can I go into chat and put my email there? Is that possible or not?
Jean, is that possible for her to go into chat
Yes,
and put
it
in her
is.
email?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Okay.
I will.
Okay, and while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and read the next question from Susan Kidder. Just wanted to say thank you for your answer. And then Sue Azor said, is there a way to find out how to get a bill started that may not be in the legislative bills right now?
I'm assuming that means how can we get one filed with a legislator? It takes time. It probably is almost too late for this year. It's one of those things that if you have an idea for a bill, you need to approach a legislator who you think would be friendly to it, who could champion it. And it probably would need to be filed, I would think, be thought about, worked on, the language, et cetera, for next session. It's very, very common for new ideas, new bills to take a couple of years to get through a couple of sessions before they're even voted on by both chambers. So it takes time to do that, but it's worthwhile. I can tell you that I know of a bill right now that has been championed by a nonpartisan group here in my area. They started 3 years ago and approached a local legislator. And last year, I think it got one hearing and then died. And this year it was refiled again, and they're hoping that it gets, more hearings and they'll see where it goes. But it's kind of a long process. I'm finding out it's not something that happens quickly. But it's worthwhile doing if it's an important issue. And in the process, of course, you're doing what we talked about tonight. You're building up support. You're building allies. The more allies you bring in to the legislator who you want to sponsor your bill, the more powerful that will be, and might get sponsored faster. So it's all about building your coalitions, building your support ahead of time.
The next two are comments. Tally Day's chair, Francine Julius Edwards, wanted to say that members of DWCF work with the Florida House and Senate members. And Marcia Storch wanted to say, we have a lost our opinion page in the Gainesville Sun. Any other options? It makes me very angry that our freedom of speech is being stifled. Did you want to comment on that?
I sympathize, because here in the Pensacola area, a similar thing has happened where they've only published now letters to the editor once a week on Sundays. And you can tell those letters are old. They don't even publish timely current letters. They've been written weeks before. So it's frustrating. And so again, I think what you have to do is you have to use social media to your advantage. It's difficult. Maybe try some more of the community papers as opposed to one big, paper that you're finding is shut down. But it is frustrating. It's part of the loss of our independent papers, unfortunately.
Well, Jean, we have a lot of questions yet to answer. Can you say a few words about the Florida Channel? And that was from Christine Ortiz.
Sure. The Florida Channel is floridachannel.org is an organization. It's like C-SPAN for Florida. And you can watch the committee hearings live while they're going on, which are really pretty interesting, especially when they're going over some of the controversial bills. But even some of the non-controversial bills it's interesting to listen to the discussions. So you can find whatever bill you want to hear. You have to know it's being heard in committee, obviously. So again, that's where you use the House or Senate websites to see that a bill is being heard in committee. And then you can look up that committee and find it on the Florida Channel. But you also can watch recordings of committee hearings, and you can do that from the Florida Channel once a committee hearing is finished, but you can also do it from the House or Senate website. So if you go to the committee that heard a particular bill, you'll see like an archive of committees and watch watch those committee sessions. And I really urge everybody to do that. If you can't be in Tallahassee live to see some of these committees, it is unbelievable what you learn by watching, first of all, watching our brave Democratic legislators in action. You just are so proud. They are unbelievably smart and strategic, and it's just, you feel so proud when you watch them in action. But you also get to see body language and you know, different reactions on people's faces that you don't read about, you know, in the media article the next day about a particular bill. So it's a really great way to learn what's going on as it moves through.
Can I add to that? Someone mentioned earlier, was asking how we can help our legislators. And by showing up and being in those meetings, as Jean had mentioned earlier, but also stepping up to the mic and speaking on your behalf for or opposing a piece of legislation. And also, you know, if you don't want to get up, you can also sign an appearance paper, right? So your name is also read into the record. But the bottom line is you have, you know, 50, 75, 100 people in the room that are opposing something. And then the Republicans take a minute and 30 seconds to vote it straight through. You know, there's no denying how much Floridians are against a specific piece of legislation, and cameras don't lie. So, you know, your television might tell you one thing, your news might tell you one thing, your newspapers might tell you another thing, but the Florida channel is going to show you the truth. So that's another reason why it's really important to be in those rooms.
Thank you, Monica. The next two are from Gail Cunningham from Miami Gardens. And she wanted to know, first of all, if the responses received during sessions are documented and copied to us. And the second question she wants to know, is there a point where the DWC legislative advocates meet to determine priority legislature to address?
I'm going to take the second question first. It basically, we decide what's priority organically, pretty much. Priority bills are going to certainly be those bills like HB1, like what we know are coming down the pike. We're going to talk about most bills going through the committee hearing process, and we might decide as a group in our Tuesday night that, based upon our subject leaders' discussion of the bill to us for the first time, that we support or oppose a bill, or that we're going to stay neutral on it. Not every bill needs us to weigh in as for or against. So it's not a real formalized process, except, as I say, for those bills that take on kind of a life of their own, that we just know are they inherently, we know they're important. And as I say, I use HB1, the school choice bill, as our first one of the session in that regard. There is no doubt how we feel about that bill. There is no doubt. We already put out an action alert about it. There will be more action alerts as it moves through the process. So it is one of our priority bills. Did we say, you know, did we state that right out of gate? Sort of, by putting out an action alert. So that's how it was decided. Now, the first question, Maureen, could you read that one? I didn't quite understand that one.
Sure, let me scroll back up. Wants to know if the responses received during sessions are documented and copied to us.
The responses received during sessions. I'm not quite sure what that is, unfortunately. Does anybody?
Gail, I think that you could probably go into chat and maybe clarify, and then we'll try to, if you could look into chat and find out what the question was addressing. The next question was, who is responsible for legislative advocacy for environmental issues? And that question comes from Jacqueline Arndt.
Who is responsible? It's one of our subject areas. It always is an important subject area for us. So I don't quite know what is meant by who's responsible for it. We are as a group, and we do have a subject leader, a volunteer subject leader, who again digs deeper into the bills and helps provide that background discussion at our Tuesday meetings. I don't know if there was more that was intended with that question.
The next one is from Pat Beerhalter. Are there current bios for legislators that are new to Florida voters and that new Florida voters can access to learn about Dems and Republicans? Are there current
Biographies. So well, they're on the websites. I'm going to be a broken record here. They're on the House and the Senate websites. There are little brief biographies. You can click on the legislator names, and up pops their bio and, you know, the district they represent, the committees that they're on, their contact information, the bills they're sponsoring this year, things like that. So again, the websites are chock full of information. I highly recommend just spending a little time and kind of surfing through and perusing them. And again, I go through this in detail in that second How to Track a Bill video that I was talking about that's currently on the YouTube channel.
Jeff Nall just wrote a thank you for this wonderful presentation. And Sue Azor had a question. If you're in a red district, should you look for a Democrat to approach about your idea? She lives in Okaloosa County.
Should say that again now? Should she?
Sure. She wanted to know, if you are in a red district, should you look for a Democrat to approach about your idea? I live in Okaloosa County.
So if you live in Okaloosa County and you have a Democrat legislator or public official, I would certainly approach them and make sure that you're allies with them and know what their positions are and how you can help them, how they can help you.
I think she's referring to perhaps a new legislative bill that she would like to see come forth.
Oh,
and who to contact.
Yeah, I mean, sure, absolutely, absolutely. Because that person has contacts as well. So, you know, again, it's that web of contacts that can help you get bills through. So
Rachel Gradge asked, she missed this part, is the Florida Channel on YouTube or on television? She just wanted that clarification.
The Florida Channel is a website. You can stream it. Is it on TV too? I don't know. I only watch it on my computer. So floridachannel.org.
Okay, I have two comments here about the chat being disabled. Jean Speranza, just so you know. Gail Cunningham, this will be our last question. Gail Cunningham wants to know, when meeting with the individual legislative representatives, is the committee discussions documented and copied to the person in the meeting? Do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah.
Okay. She wants to know, when meeting with an individual legislative representative, the committee discussions documented and copied to the person in the meeting. Is the committee discussions documented and copied to the person in the meeting?
I would say no. You mean like the notes that the note taker is taking? No, I mean, I think there's a summary. As I said, you want to send back a summary of what was discussed, the 2 to 3 main points, and but you don't have to provide a verbatim recording, if you will, back to the legislator, but just a little summary.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to circle around to the Miami Gardens question just to clarify for her. If you can contact Jean, DWCF.org, and look under standing committee chairs, and her information, the contact information is on there, so that she can better understand how to answer your question. We don't want to run by that one without answering it. So we just want to make sure that you know that you are a valued member, and we want you to answer your questions.
And Marina, I would just say that for anybody. If you have any leftover questions, send them to the email that I put in chat. I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jean, for spending time with us and sharing your expertise. At this point, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Jean Speranza to administer a survey and satisfaction poll, and then poll, and then Monica Reedus, President Monica Reedus, will be following up with some additional information. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Maureen. I'm going to be launching just a 2-question poll. I'll give everybody about 2 minutes to answer. So please quickly just go through so we could see how you felt about this webinar. Okay, we're about 50%. I'll give it another minute. Okay, thank you. I'm ending the poll. Go ahead, Maureen.
I think it's goes over to Monica at
Oh,
this
sorry,
point.
Monica.
Thank you, President Reedus.
Unmute.
I have dogs, I'm sorry. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. This has been a spectacular webinar. Jean, I want to thank you so very much for your expertise. Want to let everyone know that tomorrow evening, Leader Dodie Joseph will be addressing us at 8 p.m. I sent an email out. We reached her today. Thank you, Tally Days Chair Francine Julius Edwards. She nailed it down today because there's been so much going on this last week or two. The leader is going to speak with us about what's going on in Tallahassee right now and how we can help our legislators. So just to dovetail on the Tally Days and Chair Siebenaler's work in Tallahassee, she will help further tell us what we can do to help support our legislators in Tallahassee. So that's 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. I want to, our next webinar for the training committee is going to be February 19th. And this is the second in their series, and it's going to be on how to manage DWC's retention and recruitment. We all know that we are suffering from battle fatigue. We're suffering from COVID, the extension of COVID, and we have to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and figure out how we are going to advocate for change and make sure that Ron DeSantis doesn't have his way in Florida and in these United States. So we want to make sure that we're holding on to our members. We're recruiting members. We're growing in all around the state. Actually, we've grown almost by 700. We'll report out this weekend, which is pretty incredible. But we also know that there are a number of Democrats that we can pull in. So we're going to talk about the things that we can do to educate, pull folks in, get them excited, get them on board, because we have an amazing organization here. Events like these webinars, these trainings, we do everything that we can to keep people educated, keep them involved, keep them filled, because it's a hard road out here. And we want to make sure that you have every single thing that you need to fill your gas tank. So it's not as hard as it could potentially be. I also want to again thank you, Chair McKenna, for your work with this committee. This is it's been 2 years running, and we've had amazing events. We mentioned our conventions coming up, April 27th, and I'm telling you, the webinar, the workshops at the convention are going to be equally impressive, put together by our training committee and our DE&I committee. I will be getting that information out this week. I want to turn it over to Jean real quickly so she can give us the results of the poll. But
Sure.
overall, I just want to thank you. We had a great turnout tonight, and I want to thank you for spending the time with us.
Yep, so and everybody seemed to have liked the, and agreed with everything that was given, so good job. Okay,
Thank you and good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
good
We
night.
appreciate you.